Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fast Money Football on this beautiful Monday morning. My colleague today is James Sharman to my left. And James, not a bad weekend for our attack and defend bets. We'll get into that. First, let's start with the FA Cup. Crystal Palace beating Everton 4-0. I backed them to win, and I really thought it was going to be maybe a tighter game. And at first, the way Everton started playing, I thought that was going to be the case, but then they just blew them out of the water. 4-0, Crystal Palace beating Everton. Massive win for Crystal Palace, who now head into the semifinal. They'll be facing Chelsea at Wembley, but not a good result for Everton, especially coming up after that win over Newcastle.
Yeah, once again, Frank Lampard not looking good. And post-match, again, his comments. He sounds to me like more of a fan than a manager at this point. He's so emotional.
Mm.
And I wonder if it's getting too much for him at this point. He never accepts blame himself. It's always his players' fault or fixture congestion's fault or VAR's fault. I know this past weekend post-match, he questioned whether his team has enough bollocks to succeed at this level. I mean, that's for a manager to basically question his team's courage. That is a damning indictment on his charges there, and that's a problem. He said, "Listen, it wasn't the tactics. Look at the first 20 minutes. Like at some point, Frank, I think you have to kind of put your hand up and say, okay, we're all learning here, and I've made mistakes as well." But yeah, another big loss, and just when you think they've gone over the edge and they've got that huge result, as we saw the celebrations on the pitch and the sidelines midweek, and then to just capitulate so poorly in the FA Cup. I mean, I understand that they've got a bigger fish to fry right now, and that's survival in the Premier League, but Everton looking really poor. And tell you what, I mean, that table doesn't look any better, does it, this morning for them? It's going to be a tight race to the very, very end, I think, for them.
Playing away from home is very difficult for them at the moment. You mentioned it. Goodison is going to play a big part, and I think it really is going to play a huge part in this run. And whenever they play away, they just don't have that Goodison support. And we saw what it meant against Newcastle going down. And man, they were just on every single ball. They were living and dying. And I think when you're in this type of situation, which a lot of the players on Everton have never been in, Frank Lampard, I don't think has ever been in as a player. So this is all new to them. I think you really need the support. And, playing away is going to be really difficult. Their next match in the Premier League is away to West Ham and then away to Burnley. And then they have a couple matches at home. But those away matches are really going to determine, I think, whether or not they stay in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they have 3 games in hand, right, on some of the other rivals, and they still got to play. You mentioned the game this weekend. Well, next weekend is huge, but they got Man U still, they got Liverpool still, they got Chelsea still, right? So they're very much in the conversation. And then you look at a team like Burnley, dropping down there, who are in a worse position right now than Everton. I know that, but they have the experience of being down there and getting out of this battle. And you mentioned Lampard hasn't experienced it before. Sean Dyche has, he knows how to get his team together. And I find that quite interesting. And Turf Moor, Burnley, those fans know they must get behind their team to elevate them. And like you said, I wonder if Goodison Park will just, be so depressed, so angry, that pressure will be too much for Everton. So it's going to come down to the wire. And I can't believe I'm saying that. I thought they'd pull out of it at some point, but they just haven't so far.
We keep saying that, the players on Everton are too good to go down. They have too much quality on that side. But I don't know now. Now I watch them and I'm like, I don't know if they actually, maybe they do now, but up until this point, I'm like, I don't know if they actually believe that they're in this right now.
Yeah, and I mean,
the way that they're playing.
Name value is one thing, right? And I think as we're learning more and more, it doesn't really count for very much. And, they have some good players on paper who could go to other teams and really do a good job, but something isn't gelling there. And then putting these players in that position, you speak to guys who've been in that position before in the relegation fight, and they say, it's hard to describe what it's like, the pressure you feel every day. It's not just on the training pitch or on the match day that weekend. It's going to the store, going for a drive, going out with the family. You feel it. The fans are on you all the time. And you got to be a strong personality to weather that storm and get through it. So maybe that's what they're all experiencing for the first time. And I still don't think they're going down. I think, Norwich has gone down. We know that, right? They're done. I think Watford's probably going down. And I think it might be the end of the run for Burnley. What point do we say, they've got experience being down there, but their luck's got to run out at some point. I think that's going to happen, but there's still lots of games left, lots of points available, and Everton have to make the most of those games in hand.
Yeah, at the moment, Everton plus 225 to go down. Burnley minus 163, Watford minus 600, and obviously Norwich at the top because they are favored to go down. But yeah, Frank Lampard, it really doesn't help when you're questioning your team's resolve and asking them if they have any bollocks or whatever that is. But It's a big issue for Everton at
It's a
the
football
moment.
term, Albert.
Huh?
As Frank said, it's a football term, and it is. It's a great word too, bollocks.
He kind of stuttered before he said. He's like, "Should I say it?" No, I should have said. Just go ahead. Just go ahead
Like I
and let
said, I
everyone
think
know.
he's sounding more like a fan, like a disenchanted, angry fan to me right now, rather than the controlled,
Yeah.
measured manager. And maybe that's going to be his his reputation as a football manager. Maybe he'll be very successful being that passionate guy on the sidelines, wearing his heart on his sleeve. But I don't see too many guys succeeding that way. Most guys can be measured. You know, the Klopps, the Fergusons, the Peps. Yeah, they're emotional when they have to be, but usually it's for a good reason. Generally speaking, they're pretty measured.
What about Crystal Palace? I mean, that Vieira, the hire seems to be working out greatly.
Yeah, you know what? Palace are great, right? I mean, listen, I thought they could be going down this season
Me
or very
too.
close to it. And I thought it was a bit of a strange hire. He hadn't really proven himself. He did pretty well in New York, had a tough time in France. But he's been fantastic so far with a brand new look team. So many players left, new guys coming in. They're tough to break down, tough to beat. They're in great form right now, late in the season. And I think they really are worthwhile, semi-finalists in the FA Cup. They might not get any further, but if they survive this year and reach the FA Cup semi-finals, I think every Palace fan will say, "Man, that's a good season. That. We'll take that."
And they got a couple good players who've been called up to England as well. Conor Gallagher, who looked fantastic again.
Finally.
Mark Gahey, who scored. He looked great. Palace just really ticking. Big dogs, though, to win the whole thing, plus 1,400. Obviously, coming up against Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool. The other game, City against Liverpool, they're going to clash once again. I want to ask you this before we get into that. I'm going to give you another would you rather. Last week, I asked you, if you're an Everton fan, would you rather stay up or win the FA Cup? This one, if you're City or Liverpool, speaking on behalf of both teams, would you rather win the Champions League or the Premier League?
Okay, well, if you're City, you want to win the Champions League. There's no doubt. They've bossed the Premier League. They've got that trophy in their cabinet. They've been the best team in the last, probably last decade or so. They have that. What they haven't got is that Champions League. And that's why they brought Pep Guardiola over. That's why they were bought by the Abu Dhabi royal family, essentially, sport washing, to make that brand look better. They want to be the best team in European football vis-a-vis the best team in the world. They want that. That's so important to them, just like it was for PSG. For Liverpool, at this point, as a Liverpool fan, if I can take off my broadcaster hat and look at it
Yeah.
as a fan, I want Premier League still. I shouldn't say we, that's unprofessional. They have the Champions League back, a couple of years ago now. I know they won the Premier League as well, but it's during COVID times, empty stadiums. I want to see them get another Prem. This team built its reputation winning domestic championships back in the 70s and 80s with a few European Cups sprinkled in there for good measure. But for me, give me a domestic title, 38 games, best team wins. It's a grind. It means more to me than the cup. Now, you ask fans of AC Milan, Real Madrid, for some reason on the continent, that the Champions League means more than domestic crowns. But for English fans, I think it's still a league title unless you're a City fan. So yeah, Liverpool give us the Premier League and the Champions League can go somewhere else. But ideally, we'll take both,
Yeah,
and
or
the Carabao
four.
Cup and the FA Cup and get the quadruple.
The quadruple is still on, which is, I mean, it hasn't happened for a reason, but if it gets done, it'd be phenomenal. But I'm with you. I mean, when Liverpool won the Premier League, it was kind of sad to see them, happiness obviously for Liverpool and the fans, but not having the fans there, that's very difficult to do it this season, to come back from a 14, 15 point gap to overtake Manchester City would definitely be bigger for me, in my opinion, for Liverpool to win the Premier League. If you look at the odds now for the Premier League, top four, which we're going to transition to, Arsenal favorites, minus 200. They beat Aston Villa 1-0. James, I still don't know what to make of this Arsenal team. I think they're pretty good, but then I'm not sure. I don't know if they're just riding their luck at this moment. They're playing really well, but in that matchup against Aston Villa, Villa were just poor. I don't know if that comes down to how well Arsenal set up under Arteta or Villa just had an off day.
I think Arteta kind of nailed it last week when they lost to Liverpool. He said, listen, we've made some great progress, some great inroads. We're a good team, but the gulf is still there between us and the very best. But against teams like Villa, they are, I think, the classier team. I think Arsenal's a very good team, certainly favourites for top four at this point. They should be. It's going to go down to them and Spurs, obviously. But I think they're a very good team. They're a young team establishing that personality, that identity that's been missing for a long time. And we're really seeing that under Arteta, I think, find its place. So, yeah, I think Arsenal is a team very much on the ascendancy, using a good football word there. They've got to still spend some money still, absolutely, but they were obviously a broken unit for much of this season. Big part of that clearly was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who, as you probably saw yesterday, is just on fire for Barcelona. Still a great player, so there was something wrong there in the room. He's left. They've got better. He's got better. Everyone should be happy, except for Piers Morgan, who's really angry at Arsenal despite being a Gunners fan. Just be happy, Piers, for God's sakes. But he hates Arteta for some reason. But yeah, I think the Gunners are a good team, but they're not, even though they're not that far off Chelsea, actually, in the table right now, they're not at that level just yet. But I think they're on their way to being, once again, a credible threat for a title.
Big celebrations after the game, and rightfully so. It's a big game to win. They're challenging for the top four. They see themselves in that top four, finishing in that top four at the end of the season. Ashley Young wasn't happy about it, though, and I was surprised to hear Ashley Young because I didn't actually know he played for Aston Villa. But he came out and said they celebrated like they won the league. He wasn't happy about it. We heard that before. I think, was it Wolves? I think Ruben Neves said that, similar to what Ashley Young said. What did you make of it?
Well, firstly, I'm glad you said that about Young because I was on my podcast last night and said the same thing. Like, oh yeah, Ashley Young's at Villa. I thought it was at Inter Milan still. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I saw the starting 11. I said Young, and I had to look it up. Oh my God, Ashley Young.
Yeah, it brings it back. If he's still in his mid-30s, he seems so much older than that. I wish he'd shut up. Quite frankly, Arsenal, I said, a young team, right, who are winning some big games. Let them celebrate. I mean, it comes to a point, I guess, where it's not that classy, some would say, but these are big points. They're coming from so much pressure on their shoulders. They're being hammered early this season. Now they're getting big points in big games. They should celebrate. What's wrong with celebrating for crying out loud? It's a game. Enjoy yourselves out there. Ashley Young, if you're upset, then don't let them win. Simple as that. Beat them.
I'm not sure what people want them to do. I mean, when players win, you put their head down and walk away and shake people's hands.
We want personality in players, right? We complain about the lack of personalities in professional sports, and then when we see it, we still criticize it. So, if it was every single week, okay, it would get old. But this team is establishing itself. They've got obviously a pretty tight group there in the room. They've come from the trenches, and hey, if they want to celebrate a win, go for it. Good for them.
Yeah, top four is huge, and they're above Spurs, so lots to be happy about. And speaking of Spurs, they beat West Ham. Back-to-back wins, James, for the first time since December. They beat West Ham 3-1. I had a feeling this was going to happen just based on what West Ham went through midweek, playing 120 minutes against Sevilla, some tired legs. They don't exactly have the deepest squad at the moment. So it was interesting to see Spurs go out there and dominate the way that they did, but kind of expected in a way as well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've been asking West Ham, when will they start suffering on the weekend after those Thursday night Europa League games? And they haven't done so far. So at some point it's going to happen. I think at this point, I think they're out of contention now for top four. I know they're just, 2 points back of United, 3 back at Spurs. I think that conversation is kind of done with West Ham. They can focus now on the Europa League and still finishing in a good position in the league. But yeah, they look tired out there right now. Mikel Antonio isn't the same player as he was earlier this season. Great to see Yarmolenko getting minutes and scoring huge goals. Obviously, very emotional. But I think, West Ham are very much on the outside looking in as far as that top four race is concerned. And like we said, even Conte now is saying, I think we figured it out. Albert. And they are playing great football. It's going to be a great run-in, right? You look at Arsenal. They still have Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, and Newcastle, right? Some pretty tough games coming up. Amongst others, and Spurs have Newcastle, Liverpool, and Villa. So Spurs have an easier run-in, but Arsenal have got their game in hand. So this one, I think, will go down to maybe the last couple of weekends of the season for that top four place. And how great is that? Arsenal, Spurs, two old rivals fighting for that spot. So I think it makes for what should be a really exciting last month or two of the season.
We have a title race, we have a top four race, and we have a relegation race in the Premier League. I mean, very exciting times. Back to Spurs, plus 250 to make top four. They look really good, and I think what's really been important for them is a consistent squad. They haven't had that over the past couple of seasons. Conte continuously names an unchanged 11, and some of the players that they brought in, Kulusevski and Bentancur, I mean, he's a really good player, but they seem to settle in right away, and he's found that balance. It's just now it's up to the players to be consistent.
And there's no coincidence that as Harry Kane's become Harry Kane again, the team looks better. Son looks incredible again as well. We're seeing Kane, keep talking about him dropping so deep, but he could be an incredible midfielder, couldn't he?
Yeah.
His vision and the way he passes the ball around. I mean, there's very few better passers in the game than Harry Kane, and he's known for his finishing. So when those two are clicking, Spurs generally do pretty well. There's a lot of dependence on those two players, but there's no coincidence that as Spurs find themselves, it's because Son and Kane have found themselves as well, and it's fun to watch again, aren't they?
Yeah, and dropping deep for Harry Kane, I was thinking about this watching him play. He's a big record guy. He wants to break Alan Shearer's record for most goals in the Premier League. He wants to score all the goals. He wants to be the leading guy for Tottenham. But now, if he's playing in this role moving forward, it'll probably extend the longevity of his career, being able to play multiple positions. But that means he's going to have to give up some goals. Do you think
Mhm.
that would play in the back of his mind?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I wonder. I think he's a smart enough guy that he knows he must adapt, and the great players adapt to different positions. He's not quite there yet. I mean, he's still a striker. He's still in his late 20s in his prime. He's still got a lot of goals in those boots. I think he'll do it. I just have a feeling he'll do it. He's been around long enough. He's been so consistent, and maybe he drops a few goals each year. But I just got a feeling that with the modern footballer, with sports science the way it is, they do play longer than in the past. And I can see Harry Kane playing for a very long time, be it Spurs or be it somewhere else. And if he goes to City, for example, I mean, I think they're getting Haaland this summer, but say he goes to City, Pep's not bringing him in as a midfielder, right? He's being brought in
That's
as a
very true.
striker. If
Yeah.
he goes to United, which I think is going to become a big rumor the next few weeks, he's coming in as a striker, not a midfielder. So I think there's still enough goals in those boots and in his position to catch Shearer eventually, and that'll be quite a moment.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Spurs because they need to make top four, not just to get into the Champions League, but to
Mhm.
hopefully retain Conte and hopefully keep a hold of Harry Kane, which seems very unlikely at the moment. Let's look at the bottom of the Premier League. Relegation odds at the moment, as I mentioned, Watford minus 600, Burnley minus 163, Everton plus 225, Leeds plus 300. What a win on Friday night against Wolves.
What
They
a
were down
match!
2-0. What a match. On one of the best matches of the season so far. Raul Jimenez, two yellows, get sent off. Leeds come back, win the game 3-2. Listen to this one. First time Wolves let in 3 goals this season, which I had to go and look back on. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. But
Wow.
as for Leeds and Jesse March, what a step in the right direction.
Yeah, 100%. I love this post-match comments. I really like Jesse Marsh,
He's a great
and when
speaker.
he is now. I know it's a bit unfair, but when you do shut your eyes, it could be Ted Lasso. It could be not just the accent, right, but
Yeah,
the way
it can.
his managerial speak, his positivity. But I love what he said. He said, because they said he said, yeah, I've been told that this is the most prototypical Leedsy result and Leeds performance. And he goes, I am not happy about that at all. That scares me a little bit. I don't want these games. I want more consistency. But you watch the goals they conceded in that first half, man. They were horrible goals to concede. The defense was just pathetic, right? A real throwback to Bielsa, but he's getting things figured out, it seems. They are getting a little bit tighter the second half. They're obviously much tighter, albeit up a man. Um, it was a really good result. Really sad to see Patrick Bamford go off again injured
Oh man.
in tears. I mean, they've really missed him this year. If they're Bamford and Calvin Phillips throughout this campaign, I don't think they are where they're at. They've been really hurt through injuries. But that was disappointing. But yeah, I think Leeds might do enough. They might do enough to just about survive right now. You figure, I mentioned Norwich going down. I think Watford's probably going down. So it's going to be one of Leeds, Brentford, Burnley, and Everton, right, going down with them at this point. And I think Leeds may have just about done enough at this point to survive. But I think 35, 36 points would be enough this season. So I think they'll be okay. But hey, listen, can't rule out Burnley. We never do. Brentford, I don't know what they're doing each week. And Everton, well, they're just terrible right now. So
Yeah. Yeah, I want to see Leeds in the Premier League. It feels right having Leeds in the Premier League. I'm not a supporter at all, but those fans, I love seeing Ellen Road, the old school stadium. I think that needs to stay in the Premier League. And I just want to see what Jesse Marsh can do with this team because I think he can be a very good manager. And if they really take to him, I think he could take this team to deep places in the Premier League. Hopefully, they don't lose too many players. I saw a rumor that Calvin Phillips is linked to a couple teams. I think Aston Villa being one, Manchester
yeah,
United. I
saw
mean,
that.
if he leaves, that's a big loss for Leeds.
Yeah, but if he's going to be going for 60 or 70 million, which is kind of the
That's
price tag
crazy.
being talked about, which is a lot of money, but for a guy young,
Is that the new 25, 30
I think
million?
you're right. I think it is. I know it sounds crazy, right? But when you look at him, a young England international, he was brilliant at
Oh my
Euro,
god.
right? So I think he's legitimately a player that's probably worth that kind of money, but it is stupid money. I mean, I can't imagine Villa paying that much, but that's one of the rumors, like you mentioned. And there'll be a sale going on trying to find the right suitor for him. But if they can reinvest that money properly. But I'm with you with Marsh. I like him as well. He's done really well in his career so far. And there's a lot of North American based coaches and managers really want to see him succeed and get rid of that unfair stigma, attached to North American coaches in Europe because it is unfair. There's some very good ones. So he's flying the flag of a lot of nations in North America and a lot of managers in North America.
Yeah, and he's getting a lot of unfair criticism, like you said, and mostly coming from the media, which is pretty sad. You don't really hear too much from the fans. It's the media that are seem to be calling him out on his accent, like he mentioned in a post press conference.
Like we
One
just
thing on Calvin Phillips, if I'm West Ham, I would definitely look to bring him in because that partnership he had with Declan Rice at the Euros was fantastic. It's really well balanced. You have two
yeah,
guys who can pass the ball, who can play, who can shoot, who can break up play, and I think West Ham
but
really
if they bring in Calvin Phillips, it's because Declan Rice has left, right?
very
I think
true.
I think Rice could be gone this summer
Yeah,
for a lot of money.
yeah,
And if you're Calvin Phillips going from Leeds to West Ham, like you mentioned, you said it. Leeds is a big club with a great fan base. They should be higher than they are. That's not a big jump up to me going to West Ham. I think he's looking for Champions League football
yeah,
next
yeah.
next,
Which
next
could be,
contract, and I
yeah.
think could be Spurs would be a perfect fit for him.
Oh, I'd love that. Hopefully that can happen. We'll see what happens coming in the summer transfer window. But time to talk about Canada. Massive week, one of the biggest windows in men's Canadian soccer history. They take on Costa Rica on March 24th. 1 point out of the playoff spot is Costa Rica. So it'll be a difficult matchup for Canada. But what are your expectations for the Canadians heading into this final window?
Same as they have been throughout the entire qualifying campaign. I expect a really good performance against a desperate Costa Rica to start things off. And don't forget, they are desperate, right? They need 3 points. They have to get 3 points. These are must-win games for them and for Panama as well. So these will be tough challenges. But so far, every time we've asked something of Canada, they've stepped up and they've answered those questions with great performances. So I think they're going to qualify against Costa Rica with a point or 3 points. But it's going to be a battle. 35,000 people at that stadium. It's going to be a ton of fun. We'll be there, which I'm really excited about.
Yes.
So yeah, you know what? I expect a great performance. It's a good, strong squad. I love the fact that he's gone with the guys that have gotten here so far. He's kind of stuck with that pretty much. A couple of new guys in there, Kone from Montreal in particular, really interesting. But yeah, I'm confident they will progress early in this window. They're going to progress regardless. I mean, I'm not concerned about that. I'm not nervous, which is not how I thought I'd be thinking this final window, Albert. All those months ago, I thought this would be coming down to it. But yeah, really exciting times of Canada, and what a huge game for this nation on Thursday.
Yeah, Herdman named the squad yesterday. Very strong squad. No Alfonso Davies as expected. I think the question would have been, how can Canada cope without him? But they showed that at
Yeah.
the Gold Cup. They showed that in the last window. And it tells you a lot about John Herdman and his team, is that it's not so much about one player, which is huge. This is about the team collectively. And I know they have their internal goals of finishing in first place. So I think we should probably expect a Canadian team to not just go out there and try and collect points, but to go out and win every single game.
Yeah, that's their internal, goals have been set, not just to qualify for the World Cup, but to finish in first place and to go undefeated, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And you're right about Fonzie. When they first kicked off this campaign, John Herdman told the club, the team, we are more than Fonzie. We love having Fonzie. Don't get me wrong. We're very fortunate to have that player, but we're more than just one player, and they've shown that. That last window, I think, will probably be the one window that stands out to me out of all the windows in this campaign, all 17 games going way back when. They bossed it. They played some very good teams away from home as well. And they managed to get the job done without their very best player for 3 games. So I think it was a real statement window. And this one hopefully will be a celebration window. But even if they qualify against Costa Rica, don't expect them taking the foot off the gas against Jamaica at BMO Field and then against Panama, because they have internal goals they want to meet.
Yeah, and they've outscored their opponents 50-6, James, 13-0-4 in the CONCACAF at the moment. Costa Rica, Jamaica, Panama, like you said, all those teams have something to play for, and I don't think you can underestimate that. It's going to be different. This is not just about Canada. There's a lot to go still to happen within this World Cup qualifying. Let's talk about John Herdman. I know I mentioned him before, and I asked you this, like how important he is to Canada. But has there been a manager that has done so much with less? Because he's come from New Zealand to Canada. He took the women to the Olympics, won the bronze medal, comes to the men's side, and he's done this. I'm trying to think of another manager who's done something similar, and I can't.
It's a great question. I'm not sure. I mean, he's come to these really underdog programs with very little expectation around them, a lot of frustration in the fan base, and completely turned them around. When he took over the women's program, don't forget, that team was in disarray as well, coming off a really bad era, unpleasant experience with the previous coach. And he turned that around really quickly.
Yeah.
Those 2012 Olympics was a year after he came aboard, right? I mean, a complete turnaround. And with the men's program as well, he comes into a club, a team of players who are cliquey. There's divisions in there. And he just challenged them. He turned it all around. The players bought in. This manager who had coached women before, which hasn't happened very often in international football, to their success. And they bought in straight away. It's incredible. And, I joke around with some of the Canada soccer guys saying, well, are you nervous about losing this guy at some point? Because his star is high right now, right? And there'll be clubs out there, teams out there, be it domestic, be it international, be it club or international football. And they'll be thinking this guy's pretty good. If he does a good job, which I'm sure he will at the World Cup, it might be a big question to ask. Can they retain him for the home World Cup 4 years later? But listen, let's just enjoy this right now and cross that bridge when we come to it. But he's done a remarkable job so far.
Yeah, let's not think too far ahead. But yes, the big game coming up March 24th against Costa Rica, like James said, the parlay. We will be there on location, so stay tuned for all the content coming out from there. Well, James, I'll see you in Costa Rica. It'll be a good time. Should we bring the sunscreen out there?
Oh, I have to. I mean, I've got that English pasty complexion, and I can't be bright red on TV, so I better make the effort.
It's going to be a great time. Well, that's it for Fast Money Football. Please, guys, head over to Parlay TV for more parlay content and follow James Sharman at James Sharman on Twitter. You can follow me at The Real Bird Fee. Take care.